everyone, welcome to this class. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint a portrait very similar to this, abstract realism, and we're going to loosen up and it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to learn a step-by-step process using acrylics, mixed media materials, and you're going to learn how to integrate your background with your subject matter. We're going to paint basically the exact same style as this, but we're going to do this girl right here. I'm just going to jump right in and we're going to get started. And I'm using just water and a variety of different brushes, and I'm using acrylic transparent to get the first layer. So this very first step, we are going to create an abstract background. So this is going to be that kind of loose, messy beginning that you really just don't have to think much about. Most artists overthink their first layer, but the secret to expressive portraits starts right here with a loose abstract underpainting. And if you have other mixed media materials with you, you can definitely incorporate that. So I'm going to use some of these Derwent Inktense colored pencils. I love these because they activate with wet paint. So it's really fun to use water-soluble material into the wet acrylic. So just remember, don't go too dark with the first layer. Now we're going to create a bunch of mark-making scribbles on your background. So while it's still wet, you can just kind of create marks in there. So similar to this painting, this background has all kinds of different mark-making effects, and this is going to be really important for the first layer. So it'll all make sense once we get to step 2. All these marks are going to be little markers for when you start to add the portrait on top. So you just kind of want to fill the space with a lot of different mark making. I'm still just using the same transparent paint, but I'm just going in and adding little marks with the paint. So you can do that if you don't have any drawing material. I'm just adding a few more marks, and I'm trying to press down a little bit more to get a heavier mark making effect. So you want some thin, some thick, just a lot of variety happening. And that's a good enough background to start with. Okay, so we have this loose, expressive, abstract foundation, and now it's time to create a portrait painting source using a photo editing app. A step-by-step of this process is going to be right below this video. Just want to mention that. So the first step is take a picture with your phone of your abstract. And then you are going to just brighten it a little bit. You can bring up the exposure, you can crop it, and then we're going to take a picture of this. There's so many different apps out there for this technique of layering images together, and it's just very helpful to combine different imagery together. If you want to tell a story through your paintings, you can use Pixelmator to create these sources where you layer images together. I'll just show you. So you just add a new photo, that is the painting, and then you're going to add the portrait right on top. You're going to go into style and the blending mode. You can do multiply or darken. So I think I'm going to go with darken. And then you can also bring down the opacity a little bit, make it a little bit more see-through. Okay, so then you can kind of just move the portrait where you want it. So I'm going to save that. So that was super easy, and now I have the source. You're gonna just follow along and sketch in everything in the portrait based off the marks that you have on the canvas. So these are kind of your guidelines for where you're gonna sketch the portrait. So you can take whatever pencil, marker, I probably would recommend a pencil for this, and just start sketching it in. If you struggle with proportions, this technique will save you hours of frustration. By taking your abstract background and creating a reference photo from it, this is going to help you accurately sketch in your portrait every single time. You can see like I've added the outline of her face, and I think it's just such a great technique when you want to draw something fast. I'm going to show you in the next step how to complete the painting with acrylics. If you've ever felt like your paintings look lifeless or flat, this technique is going to change everything. The key is knowing where to be bold and where to hold back. So We're going to start with big brushes because you can create really bold, expressive brush strokes that way and stay loose. If you go to your tiny brushes, then you'll probably end up getting really tight and controlled. So try to just start with a big brush, and I am going to start blocking in. I'm just going to mix some darks together to create almost like black or dark brown hair, and I'm just going to start by blocking in some of the darks. Just play around with different brush strokes. Try to hold the brush really loosely. You can hold it at the end, hold it on the side. I'm trying to have my brush strokes go with the form in the hair. And I'm choosing a transparent because I still want to see some of that underpainting. Okay, so now I'm kind of going in with some lighter colors, and there's not much of a shadow here on her cheek, but I want to just exaggerate that a little bit to create a good base for once I add a highlight on top. We're just adding all the midtones and darks right now with transparent paint. So I've just moved down to a smaller brush, and I'm trying to get in some of those darks in the facial features. So this is going to start to really make the portrait pop from the background, but by keeping it still in the transparent phase, you're going to be able to integrate your background a bit more. Another technique or trick on staying loose with your portraits, if you do a black and white photo, I think it's easier to be expressive with the color because you're making it up, and you can add lots of fun colors into this. So in the shadows here, I've used the turquoise and the opus pink instead of just black and white. To get like little wisps of hair, I'm just using the corner of the brush and just trying to go with that motion. I also love square brushes for details because you can get such a crisp, clean line when you just use the edge of it. We've built depth and energy into the painting, and now it's time to refine some details and bring forth the focal point. Now we are going to step 5, which is refining details to pull the portrait forward. We are going to refine your portrait, start adding some opaque colors, really mix expressive flesh tones, and add the highlights to really make it pop. A lot of artists either overwork their details or their painting just kind of feels unfinished, and I'm going to show you how to find the perfect balance, because the whole beauty of abstract realism is leaving those unrefined, messy parts and letting that shine through your painting. So having a good combination of both, knowing what to paint over and knowing what to leave as is. I'm going to start with the background now because a lot of this, there's still the white of the canvas. Now it's totally dry, so I'm going to go over it with another light kind of wash just to stain the white. So it doesn't really matter what color you use. I'm choosing just a super light color, like a gray. And it will activate some of that mark making, but I'm not too worried about it now because, it served its purpose. Now I really want the portrait to stand out a bit more from the background, so I'm going to go in with just kind of a creamy white color. I don't mix a lot of just plain white acrylic. I think that can be very boring and flat, so if you just mix a little bit of another color in there, it will give it life. So you can try this dry brushing technique where you just drag your brush across and you can still see a little bit of what's underneath. You can also scumble with it, just using the side of the brush. And that way you're still keeping some of that abstraction. If you're not sure which areas need this light, you can do a combination of chiaroscuro, so you can apply light next to a dark and that will pop it forward, and then you can add dark next to a light. So that's one way. If you're just really stuck on the background and you don't know what to do, you can try chiaroscuro. Around the hairline, I think it's always a good idea to just make that really fuzzy and not too harsh. So You want to pay attention to your edges. Like this right here, that's a little bit harsh, and I'm just going to blend that a little bit. So that's going to give your painting more depth if you create some very soft, hazy edges in the background, and then wherever you want the focal point to be, so probably her eyes, her lips, you know, something on the face, then you can pay attention to creating more crisp, clean lines that will pop forward. And that's how you can create depth in an acrylic painting. So I'm gonna start adding some flesh tones and details. So when you go to place your brush strokes, you really want them to go with the form that you're seeing. So they're not just random brush strokes that are going random ways. You really wanna feel those plane shifts. Right here on her cheekbone, you can imagine that's, you know, coming forward. So that is a plane shift right there. And it's really where like a dark meets a light. So as the shadows and everything shifts around, that's where you can find those plane shifts. When you add those midtones first, and then you go on top with a highlight, it'll really come forward and pop and give it more depth there. That is the whole purpose of working kind of dark to light and just waiting and being patient to add those final highlight details. To create a portrait that's exciting and not boring, you gotta add some of that bright color in there. You can kind of place like an orange next to a blue. That's gonna create some contrast, and mixing other colors into your white. That will really help you. Okay, I lost track of time. So I'm just gonna spend the last couple minutes adding some final details. You can step back from your painting and see what it needs. I think that always helps getting a fresh perspective. I'm gonna use this round brush, just the very tip of it, to get some really fine details. This eye is not finished and the nose needs a little bit. So I'm going in with some darks just to create a little bit more contrast. While you guys are finishing your piece, really think about the edges, because that is one of the key factors in making your piece feel finished. Is just look at the edges, make sure you have variety, and having some more bold brush strokes, and then also a combination of like some more softened blended areas and crisp, clean edges. So just a good variety of everything, and your painting will feel a lot more finished. All right, so you have just seen a small piece of what's possible with abstract realism. If you love this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel. There's gonna be so much more coming in the future. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time.